Games cost a lot to make. They cost a lot of energy and time, sleep, and sometimes tears, also money. A lot of money. Games are not cheap to make. If you are looking for funding for your game, you have probably already started the pitch deck process, designing some slides that help show the highlights of your game, what you would like to happen, and how much money you need them to give you. How do you make your pitch deck stand out? How do you make it successful? Well, obviously, you can review other successful pitch decks online. You can learn from a few. How much would you learn from 250 pitches, though? That's the Ed Lago story. Ed reviewed 250 pitches for Creature.page, and he's here to share some of the best practices that he learned from that process. He's a senior producer, business developer, and scout for Creature.page, and he's hoping that maybe he'll be able to help your pitch deck and your game shine with the knowledge he gained. Now, as he calls out, it is a really tough funding environment right now, so please give yourself grace when going through the process. This is knowledge worth having. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Ed Lago.
Hey everyone, welcome to my talk, 250 reviewed game pitch later, the lessons learned. You're probably wondering, did this guy actually review 250 pitches? Yep, not only that, but I replied to every developer who submitted for this opportunity. So they knew the decision about possible funding there or not. But anyway, how did this happen? So I'm currently working as a senior producer for a studio label called Creature. And my first main project when I joined them was to organize and run the Indie VR Fund powered by our partners from SideQuest. They had this funding of $1 million available to support developers who are making virtual reality games, and they reached out to us to Creature to help them with the process. So I was responsible to review all the submissions, talk to developers, play the builds, put in front of the team the most interest projects and many other activities related with that. That's how I reviewed all the submissions in 9 months. So with all this experience that I got working on this project, and with years of pitching games myself in other studios, some got funded and a bunch not, by the way. I wanted to share some do's and don'ts from my perspective for all developers out there who are planning to submit a pitch for a potential partner, label, publisher, or platform. As much as this submission was focused in virtual reality projects, I hope there's something for your type of game as well. So the goal here is really to help you thinking about different ways to present your game idea and get that extra attention for the person who's reviewing your pitch. So my name is Ed Lago, and I have 18 years of experience in game development, working in different roles from game design, production, and creative director. I have been leading teams across several studios, switching between roles from senior producer to executive producer, where I supported those teams to develop original VR and AR titles, like the DICE Award winner, Pistol Whip. And as I said before, I'm currently working for Creature as the senior producer, business developer, and scout for their label branch, where I support different studios. And here's some of the projects that I worked in the recent years. But let's move on for what you came here to watch today. Oh, and before we start, as just a heads up, I will be using a personal game idea to use as example for this entire presentation. So don't worry about judging the game idea. If you don't like, that's on me. But if you like the game idea, I have a pitch ready to show to you. But let's talk about the first lesson, the game pitch slide. So to start with some of the thumbs down, less test and more visual elements, Avoid walls of text. Folks, the amount of submissions that I received with these huge walls of text, it almost felt like I was reading a game design document. And please, never do that. The game pitch is literally the best chance you have to get someone's attention, so the person feel engaged to review everything else. So remember, no walls of text, please. The second thumbs down. Using many games as reference. Using all the well-known games to help explain your game idea is totally fine. The problem is when people use too many of them. This can bring a lot of confusion when you're trying to understand your game idea. Using more than 3 different games can backfire explanation most of the time. So watch out with that. Stick to 3 main reference. It's probably going to help you a lot. And speak of reference, watch out with obscure reference, please. This can be a big issue as well. As much as we love to entertain ourselves with games, books, movies, and so on, I doubt anyone here has time to watch, read, or play everything that's out there. So try to focus your reference in mainstream stuff. It's always going to be helpful to solidify your game idea, even if you're not really getting inspiration for exactly that, but try to focus in the bigger main reference. Now, time for some thumbs up. One big lesson, get straight to the point. Yes, using keywords, bullet points, catchy words, know how to explain your game idea in a simple and quick way will put you ahead of many submissions. Using visual elements in your favor. That's okay if you don't know how to draw or doesn't have enough budget to hire artists in this specific moment of the project. But use visual elements and reference in your favor. Put images of well-known IPs to help sell your idea. Remember, most of the people are really visual. That's how you're going to get their attention. And practice your pitch. Practice with someone else outside of your bubble. If you're able to explain your game idea in less than a minute, you'll be able to put that in a presentation as well. A lot of times people just need to hear what they're talking so they can come with a better wording to put in a game deck. Practice, please. Practice with a lot of people. And now let me show some examples of do's and don'ts about the game pitch slides. Remember, this is my own game idea, so feel free to judge me. In this example of don't, here's a common slide that I had to review many times during this process. I'm not going to read all this, by the way, don't worry. But I challenge you, all of you, to try to focus in all this text and tell me where your eyes are actually going, because there's a lot to digest. And because I built this example, I actually even removed so many words because usually it would be walls of text. By the way, do you recognize that game at the bottom of the deck? Let's see, maybe if you're super hardcore From Software fan, that game is Meta Wolf Chaos. I doubt a lot of you actually have played this game. So moving on to example of how to do the game pitch slides. So here, I try to make things really simple, using established reference, going straight to the point, but at the same time, plenty seeds for upcoming slides. It's really about making the person review the deck excited, intrigued, but never confused. So long story short, less text, more visual elements, go straight to the point. That's the first lesson that I had to share with you about the game pitch slide. But let's check the next lesson. The game design slides of a pitch deck. That's a big important one. So I want to hear from everyone watching this talk right now. Please repeat to yourselves. pitch deck is not the GDD. Pitch deck is not the GDD. Pitch deck is not the GDD. Remember this. So some of the thumbs down. Documentation. I know some people are really passionate about the ideas and they have this entire complicated system in their minds about how the mechanics works, how each feature is unique and never seen before. But if the person who is reviewing the pitch actually get interested about the core ideas of your game, they're gonna ask for more details. So this is when the developer have the chance to share more about the depth of the game. Don't put all in the pitch deck. There's time for everything. So remember that. This applies for other elements as well. This is especially valid for games where the narrative may be the main element of the core idea. We don't need to see these huge walls of text explaining everything about the lore, each character or many slides of the story of the game. This is all can be asked later if the core and the high level idea is presented in an interesting way. Coming back to using other games as a reference, usually when people start explaining the game design ideas of the game, this is when people start to get lost because using more than 3 references, especially if they're not the same as the previous slides, it creates a lot of confusion someone who's evaluating your idea. So I just want to make sure using game reference is fine, but don't complicate yourself. When you're using a reference in a previous slide to talk about a mechanic, and then you bring another game to talk about the same mechanic, these are 2 different games, and each person has their own experience, so this can create like a snowball effect of confusion. So try to avoid that. Use the same reference as we used before, and usually stick to 3. So thumbs up time. Always high level. Any slide should be always high level. Game pillars, main features, game loop, game progression, and so on. Straight to the point and easy to understand. Coming back to visual elements, keep using visual reference. Doodles are super helpful for people to digest and understand the high-level idea. Make sure you use the same reference from the game pitch slides. Consistency in the presentation is always important and helpful for anyone that's doing the review of the deck. A great tip, using user journeys. Something that can be really helpful for design slides is making the user journey of your game idea, explaining what the player does from the beginning until a certain point can be really helpful. Even for you to actually understand how exactly they want the game to be played. User journey is a topic with a lot of articles and reference out there and comes from UX design, especially from mobile games. But the most well-known points are the user journey on onboarding, scaffolding, progress, and endgame. Do your research about user journey and thank me later. It's going to be really helpful for your design slides. But now let's see some do's and don'ts of examples that I brought to put in the pitch deck. So in these examples of don't, again, lots of text. I'm not going to read for you. Don't worry. I do understand some people need to put the ideas in a paper, but save that for your own internal team or your own personal notes. You always need to remember there's someone in the other side who is reviewing your deck. And this person usually only have between 5 or 10 minutes maximum of attention before this person lose the interest and needs to review something else or needs to do something else. So always remember that. You really need to get the attention of the person properly. And as I told you before, if someone gets interested in the idea, they're going to ask for more details. But the pitch deck, it's not the time for that, the huge walls of text. So I brought an example of how to change a slide like this in a different way. So in this example of do, I got all the information for the previous slide, and I made something really simple but straight to the point. I have 4 strong keywords on this slide to explain the core loop of my game idea: build, fight, sell, and buy. This gives instantly a good idea what's actually happening in the main loop. So it's all about giving enough information to be clear about your game idea, but always leaving enough room for the questions later. So in this example, each one of these main loop points can become a slide after this, so you can explain a little bit more about them. It's never a bad idea as long as you keep doing high level. Again, use a reference to your favor, bring visual elements that help with what you want to explain, stick to consistency, and I kept using the same reference that I used in the game pitch slide, so the person reviewing the deck doesn't get lost thinking about something else. So do you have basic drawing skills? Even better, show the game loop using doodle skills. This example about game loop is applicable for all other design elements that people usually put in a deck, like game pillars, main features, core mechanics, narrative, and so on. Always high level, never the game design document. But that's enough for the lesson 2. Time to move on for the next one. Lesson 3, the prototype. A hot topic with different points of view, but I want to share some of them from my perspective. So to start, the overall quality of game pitch has been increasing in the recent years as more people learn how to develop games and how to sell the game ideas. So prototypes can actually be a big factor when it's the time to decide if a project should be get funded or not. There are teams out there who can get funding only pitching the idea, but they usually super experienced and they probably have successful shipping titles if they work together. But let's chat about some pros and cons of the prototypes in the perspective of a less experienced team. So starting with the thumbs down. When art is more polished, this one depends of who you're pitching for, but at least from my perspective, when the art feels more polished than the gameplay in the prototype, it can create a mixed message when we are evaluating the project. Art in the prototype is usually used to hide some gameplay issues, so people focus on what's pretty, good looking, and gameplay stays in the background. And I can remember in my entire career getting funding for a project or selecting a project to get funded because the prototype had the art more fleshed out design. So something to pay attention to. Lack of instructions. The amount of submissions that I received, prototypes without 0 instructions hurts my soul. Not only I had to spend my time trying to figure out how to start some of these builds, I had to spend time trying to figure out how to control characters, moving around. And all this can be solved with one slide in the deck that explains the basic controls of the prototype or a few lines in the submission process. There's so many ways to make that part easy to move forward. So pay attention to that as well. And bugs. We know this is a prototype build. We're not expecting the most polished build ever. And everybody had the expectation that bugs will happen, weird stuff going on. But there's nothing worse than playing a prototype and the build crashes in the middle of the playthrough. You need to be really confident with your game that someone's going to try to play the game after a build crash, because it's usually move on time. Always test your build in different environments, setups with different people to make sure you have something stable before submitting. It doesn't hurt to give a heads up about possible bugs that we may encounter. That's actually really appreciated. So move on to thumbs up. The prototype should be fun, Mr. Obvious. Of course, fun is subjective and it depends of the type of game you're trying to do, but you can feel when a game is delivering what was promised in the pitch deck. So always focus on delivering one or two core concepts of your idea, because when we play a prototype, we actually want to play and feel what got our interest in the game pitch. What makes your idea to stand out in comparison with everyone else? For example, if you're making a 2D platform and the main mechanic is about dashing, so make the entire prototype about how fun dashing can be and the many different ways you'll be able to extrapolate that. Choose the core of your game and go for it in the prototype. Second thumbs up, art direction in a different scene or build. And I want to be clear that having art in the prototype, it's totally fine, but usually leave the prototype to be in a more gray block state. So the gameplay is the main focus with some art support here and there. Having the same build, one scene to show the gameplay and another scene that loads example of the art direction applied for a level can be a way more positive experience, because then during the evaluation process, I'm actually focusing one main thing at the time. And both design and art teams can actually over deliver in their respective scenes without worrying about the technical challenge of having these two areas to come along to make the prototype stable. So that's a good suggestion. Really focus the design in one part of a prototype and the art in the other side. So you actually avoid some headaches of trying to make these two together. And a third thumbs up, a video. This is something a lot of developers forget, but please record some cuts of the best moments of the prototype. Imagine a sizzle reel, not exactly a trailer. The amount of times something went wrong with a deck, a bugged prototype, or just lack of time to evaluate things properly. So having a video to watch can be really helpful to digest and understand everything that was presented in the game pitch. Videos are really helpful because sometimes you're working with a bigger team while evaluating the game ideas, and you're only one with time to play that and review everything. But then you can send the video to the rest of the team. So there's a chance of more people getting excited with that. So please always record a video and submit with everything else. It's going to be really helpful for you. So moving on. No, you really thought I would show what a bad and good prototype could look like. Sorry about that, but I didn't have time to prototype my game idea for now. But jokes aside, similar with the game pitch in general, show your prototype to other people, get feedback, and invest the energy what makes your game really unique. Don't try to make everything perfect. You usually just need one well-done feature to get attention of people. And consider the suggestion of having two different scenes or two different builds to showcase gameplay in one and the art direction the other one. This can be really helpful for your own game dev sanity as well in this state of development. But time to move on for the next lesson. What? We're already moving to the end. Believe me, I had to cut a lot of content because there's so much that can be shared about this topic. But I'll try to cover more key points in the extra tips and final thought slides. So move on from the extra tips. Market community management. A lot of devs don't have experience with market or community management. And a lot of times they reach out to a publisher platform looking for specific support on these topics. But it's always a good idea to have a slide about that in a deck. Where your game idea fits with some competitors, what you're doing to stand out in comparison with them, who is your audience, how you're planning to attract them, and how you build a community around the product. There's a bunch of professionals out there. available to offer their service on both topics. Lots of articles and many talks about market for indie devs. So it's always worth doing your research and sharing what you have in mind to market a game, so it helps with the evaluation of a game idea as well. Next one, updates in DLC. This may not be applicable for all kinds of games, but it's always good to show how long you're committed to support your game idea. If you're planning to do fixes, patches for post-launch support, maybe you have some updates planned to see how the game performs after some time, or you actually have a DLC plan aligned already. Thanks to the rising popularity of live service games, more and more platforms and publishers are expecting some kind of clarity about the longevity of the game. So don't forget to talk about this as well. Next one, team experience. Are you a less experienced developer or a new team that never worked together before? The expectations of seeing more of a game idea is naturally going to be higher. Having a solid prototype, great art direction, and a good pitch deck can put you in a good path. Remember that publishers and platforms are investing money and their time in your project. So they need to be confident that your team can deliver that you're trying to sell in the pitch. So when you are a more experienced developer or experienced team, the expectation when evaluating a pitch deck is more about what's unique about your game idea in comparison with previous shipped projects and the lessons learned from them. So maybe you're trying to come with a new idea that uses a mechanic that was praised in a previous game, but with a different spin, so you can reach a broader audience, for example. Showing this type of stuff can give a lot of confidence for publishers and platforms during evaluation phase, because you're basically showing the level of maturity of your own team and expected. So it's always a positive thing. And last bullet, know who are pitching to. The amount of times I receive a submission that was fought for a different platform or publisher, or people actually didn't read our own submission rules, it's kind of sad. But please do your research. What's the culture of the publisher platform? What kinds of games they published recently? Does your game can bring something different for the portfolio, or maybe it actually fits perfectly in the types of game they publish? There's a lot of people working for publishers and platforms who are usually posting stuff on LinkedIn or Twitter to help developers with pitch process, or just giving a heads up of what they may be looking for. So again, do your research as well. So to conclude, I hope there was something useful for you in this talk. There's so much that can be spoken about game pitch, but I wanted to focus on the key ones that I see developers dropping the ball from my experience. And just remember, the current state of the game industry and entertainment in general is really tough right now. So there is more scrutiny from publishers and platforms deciding where they should invest their time and money. But don't be scared. Everyone is always looking for promising ideas. Sometimes your dream game may not be in the right time to get the funding for the first or the second time. So maybe start with something smaller, something that may speaks more with the current market trends, add a unique spin, and then you can actually get enough experience and money to pitch something that's close to your dream game in the future. So I really appreciate everyone for your time. Thanks for everybody from the Games Developer Color Expo. And if you have any questions, please reach out to social medias. I would love to talk about game pitching, production, or just about games in general. Thank you very much and take care.
Thank you for that talk, Ed. 250 pitches is a lot of pitches to go through. You know, I guess it's worth saying one more time. The pitch deck is not the game design document. But I can understand that impulse to put in a bunch of words. You want to make sure that you look prepared and knowledgeable. But I feel like the core of Ed's advice was like, capture the excitement, capture the uniqueness, highlight that. and then let them ask for details. Then you can give them the big stack of all the stuff that you've broken down, right? But of course, it's worth saying again, like right now is a particularly tough funding environment. So I imagine that even some of the best pitch decks out there are still finding themselves coming up dry. But I do hope that you're still able to find some good knowledge in this talk, that it helps you brush up your pitch deck, and that you're able to keep things going. Hopefully, some of this funding nightmare will turn around soon, but regardless, I'm glad that we still have spaces where we can share our knowledge and experience and grow together. So thank you for that talk, Ed. If you want to keep up with him, you can find him on Twitter at Ed Lago. All right, friends, we're coming up on the last break of GDOC Expo 2024. It's been quite the show, hasn't it? I hope you have enjoyed it. I think that there have been so many good lessons to learn from this show, so many great people to meet. I hope you've been spending time in Swapcard, connecting and scheduling meetings at booths. There are all sorts of resources, people here who care about the same things. We should network, make spaces to connect, carry on these connections past the expo. That's what this is about. In the meantime, Swapcard is still out there if you want to check out some booths and games. The Steam sale is still going on through Tuesday. We've still got archives of talks if you want to keep up with those, if you missed some earlier. But for now, go ahead, stretch your legs, grab some water, do the short break thing. When we come back, we're going to have our final talk of GDOC Expo 2024. See you then.